What's up, everyone? This is Ian, and I wish to welcome you back to the Common Sense Collective. I hope that everyone is safe right now, dealing with this COVID-19 outbreak. I'm in Alabama, so it hasn't been as bad here as it has been in any other places, but I hope everyone's practicing social distancing. If you have any of the symptoms, go get yourself checked out, and please just be safe during these tumultuous times. I wanted to drop a video, but given the current work situation, I'm blessed to be able to work remotely. I've had the time to make this video, which I wanted to put out about 3 weeks ago. But this is about fragrances. I also like to say to everyone listening on Spotify or SoundCloud, I will drop a link to this. You can follow many of these steps if you have Tom Ford, Lost Cherry, or any scents that come in similar packaging from Tom Ford. Tobacco Vanilla is another example. But just follow along and listen in. And if you run across, I'm producing these steps so that if you run across another cologne which you think is fraudulent or a perfume fragrance that you feel is fraudulent, you'll be able to use this process and these steps to determine if it is indeed fake or not. So hopefully this is helpful. I know it took me some research to gather all these steps and it took time looking at all these things to really get an understanding of what I should be looking for and what's out of place besides the very basic things. So I'm going to try to go in detail, but just to give a little background, I went to a Saks Fifth Avenue in Birmingham and I was wanted to get a Ventus. I smelled Aventus years back. Never had Aventus. Got Bond number 9. Actually got Creed Himalaya. Got a couple bottles of Bond number 9, but never got a Creed Aventus. So we spent Valentine's Day weekend in Birmingham, and just happened to go to Saks Fifth Avenue while there and smelled a couple of different fragrances. I picked up, of course, the Aventus, and it's in the room, but I smelled a couple other fragrances, and there's one specific one that stood out to me. Tom Ford Lost Cherry. Now, smelling this stuff, it smelled amazing to me. It was jaw-droppingly good. It was just crazy. Fell in love with it and had to get it. So, of course, looking for the best deal, I decided that, hey, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to see if I can find a better deal somewhere. You know, see if I can find a better deal. I don't have to do this. So, of course, in trying to find a better deal, I ran up on eBay, which is a no-no for most people when it comes to most fragrances, given the level of counterfeiting of popular fragrances. Went to eBay, saw some deals, like, this could be interesting. Let me check this out. Well, I got one box of Lost Cherry and one package of Lost Cherry in 3.4 ounce. I got this one first. And I bid on this one because I didn't think I was going to get it. Lo and behold, I won it. Now, what's interesting is if I go back to eBay, the listing for this item still exists. The item on the left still exists. The listing for the item on the right no longer exists, which is very telling. But, something just didn't sit right with me. It's kind of like a sixth sense that you get about things. If something fishy's going on, you can just feel it. And I knew out the gate that I paid much too little for these. Now they weren't 50 or 60 bucks. I mean, the first one I bought was 165 and this one was 148, I believe. Now the manufacturer suggested retail price of a 3.4 ounce bottle of Lost Cherry is 335 bucks. So, I'm getting it at a little bit less than half price. I mean, a little bit more than half price for one and a little bit less than half price for the other. Can't beat that, right? Can't beat it. So, I bought one, bought the other one, and now they're here. So I'm checking them out. They look good. And the interesting thing is, I didn't have a bottle of any bottles of Tom Ford, fragrances that had similar packaging to the Lost Cherry. I had a Eau de Swallow Blanc, had a Black Orchid, and Tom Ford Noir. So none of those fragrances came in packaging like this. So, I didn't have a reference point. So, I already was suspicious when I bought them. So, I told myself, I'm going to get online and check some things out to see if I can tell if this is legit or not. I really doubt that it is, but I at least want to be reassured. So I got online, did some research, and lo and behold, red flags started going up. One thing that annoyed me was the fact that I like to have all the information in one place. When I'm looking for something or researching something, I like the Wikipedia effect, I guess. Maybe it's because we're spoiled or we just crave convenience. But I like to be able to get all the information I need to verify things from one place. And I noticed I was going through YouTube videos for about 2 hours. And I was hearing various people talk about different things. And I had to pretty much combine all these things and make a guide for myself on how to tell if it was real or not. And I'm going to share that information with you now. So we'll start with the big things. There's one thing that is interesting, a little bit different here is I believe I may have swapped these boxes by mistake. I'm not sure though. So I'm going to call out these labels first. Well, no, let's start with the 500-pound gorilla in the room. Every fragrance damn near has a a batch code underneath the bottom of the box. And I'll pick up this one to show you as an example. The batch code for this fragrance is 849. Now, if you go to the website checkfresh.com, which is listed, not affiliated with CheckFresh, but it is a hell of a resource, you can type in the make or the manufacturer of the fragrance as well as the batch code, and it will give you information based on that batch code. So that's one thing. The other thing to pay attention to as far as the batch code is, again, to make sure it has a batch code. This item does not have a batch code on it. Now, this is Tobacco Vanille. Got this on sale, excuse me, at Macy's. Batch code. Eau Swallow Blanc. I got this from Dillard's about 2 or 3 years ago. Batch code. Kind of blurry, but has a batch code. Grey Vetiver. I got this from on sale from Neiman Marcus. And Grey Vetiver is a lot cheaper right now, everyone. Grey Vetiver is going for like $158. I heard on the Kevin Samuels YouTube show that this may be going out of production, but the price of this is amazing. And for the price for the fragrance, you can't beat it. Get a bottle of it if you can. More so if it's got to go out of production, but that's neither here nor there. Has a batch code. So one of the 500-pound gorillas in the room is to check your box. Check your fragrance. There should be a batch code. There's no qualm about that. There should be a batch code on your box of juice. Make sure that's available. Another thing, this is just ticky-tack to me. Look at the alignment of the label. You have this value, which matches the same value on the fragrance thing. That's another point to look for. The number on this sticker should match the fragrance. The number on the last digit, last value in the fragrance line. Ingredients. Pay attention to that. But the alignment of this sticker threw me for a loop. You see? Barcodes reading from left to right. Makes sense. That's how most barcodes read. On the presumed real bottle, barcode reads from left to right. On the known fake, barcode goes from right to left. Now, some people say, man, that's just a small oversight, but the reality is that many of these things, I'm fairly positive, are made on a production line. So if something is made on the production line, you don't have these types of things happening. They should all be in alignment, in the same alignment. Now, Grey Vetiver is different because it's actually printed on the box. So that's a different one. Different case. It is Swallow Blanc. Printed on the box, so it's a different case. Tobacco Vanille with the same packaging as Lost Cherry, left to right. That's something I paid attention to, and I believe that could be a telltale sign. Another thing is the patterns on the boxes. Now, as you can see, it's a very detailed box. Yeah. The dimples. Small details. If you look at these, they seem a little bit more faint, don't they? You can see them, But this box is a lot more reflective than the tobacco vanilla box. But you can see that oops, almost dropped it. You can see that there's some there. And this is carpet anyway, so it wouldn't be a problem. The presumed fake. Stenciling is really good on this. They did a really good job on this box, which is very surprising. It's very easy to be fooled by these. Very easy. But we'll continue digging. So check that out. Make sure it looks good. Make sure it feels good. Make sure nothing jumps out at you. Like, what the hell is this? One other thing. Sharp labels. How do the labels look? Now, one thing that jumped out at me was if you look at these labels, I'm a stickler for details, I guess because I've been in quality control throughout my construction career, but I'm looking for straight lines. I'm looking for sharp edges on these labels. Things like that are very telling because if someone makes a fake, then it's very easy to half-ass it and you will be able to tell. Check those labels. Make sure those labels make sense. The label on the back is sketchy for even the one that is presumed real. As you can see on the tobacco vanilla, that is how the label looks. It looks very crisp. You know, it looks like a designer label. The label on the right looks a little bit more sketchy, you know. And there are the small details that are very interesting as well. If you look at the label on the tobacco vanilla, there's a dot at the end of each line. If you look at the label on this one, there's not a dot at the end of every line. So that's a very small detail that could be very telling. Now, if you look at the known fake, it's strange because this one has a dot on the end of every line. That's kind of hard to tell. Another thing to pay attention to, besides the sharp labels, looking at the print on the labels, is just if you look at that, there is a gap between where the sticker is and where the actual imprint on the box is. Now, that's very strange. Tobacco vanilla doesn't have that problem. You can't see it. I'm not going to look at the Edward Swallow and Blonde, the Gray Velvet, because they have different packaging. If you look at the one that is presumed real, it doesn't have that problem. Not perfectly aligned, but it doesn't have the out of place or indentation where the sticker isn't sitting flush with the indentation. So that's one thing to pay attention to and to jump out. Take a look at, check that. One of the things you can actually check first. Another detail. I'm not sure where you can see it, but this area is dimpled. Where the Tom Ford, around the Tom Ford on the box, is dimpled. All around, but where the actual letters are smooth. I can run this stylus right over that. Now, if you look at the tobacco vanilla, this perfect dimpled all around it, and you can more clearly see where the indentation is because this box has a lot less luster to it. But those letters are like not embossed, but they're inset into the box. They're not printed on the box. So when I run my stylus across those, I can actually feel that they were actually somewhat stenciled in the box. And that's not the case on either one of these. So that's an X of these, which I've come to terms with more than likely. Both of these are likely fraudulent, but one is a lot higher quality than the other, and we'll get to that as we continue to move. And the other one is just the label, the contents of the labels. Do they match? That's a pretty basic one. Tom Ford Beauty, same zip code, Web Limited, Made in USA. Looking at both of these boxes, both of the Tom Ford Lost Cherry boxes, those two match. So those would be fine. That's fine anyway. And another thing I showed you earlier is this 4-digit code on the back on this label. This 4-digit code should match what is on the back of the box. T812, T812. And another thing that's very interesting is if you type in Tom Ford and you type in that 6-digit code I just showed you, it will bring up this fragrance, which is something else that is very interesting to me about these fragrances. They both pop up as Lost Cherry, so somehow this number is an indicator for Tom Ford Lost Cherry when you pop it on the internet. So that's something else to consider. And of course, I'm gonna have a list of all these things available for you to take a look at. So you don't have to. I wouldn't recommend trying to do this from memory, but it will be something you can quick reference. Let's see who any other 500-pound gorillas in the room. No, check on my notes. Okay, another one. Let's get into the guts now. This label's a little jacked up. It looks clean. It looks smooth. I believe I may have done it with my hand, scratched a little bit, but excuse me. The bottle is kind of scuffed and whatnot. And it's not terrible, but it is noticeable when you have it in your hand. Like the glass there has been scratched. Not sure how that would happen. Makes me believe that they had this out wherever it was, because otherwise these types of imperfections wouldn't be on the bottle. Look at the bottle. There's a batch number on it. That batch number on the bottom of this bottle should match the batch number on the box. Bottom of the box. Those two should match. I'll pull out the tobacco vanilla, which I know is real. And yes, same thing. It's harder to see on here, but you may not be able to see it actually. There it is. It's very difficult to see, but there is a batch number right there that matches the one on the bottom of the box. Now, one thing that I caught, which it may be nothing, but I believe everything is something. If you look at the insides of these boxes, they are both the same color, a dark color. And the tobacco vanilla is official, legit Tom Ford. The presumed fake here, I mean, one of the presumed real, but more likely be fake, has the same color insert as the official box from Tom Ford. So if this is fake, they did a hell of a job. Take this back off. Look at the text on this label. The text on that label is very, very crisp. You know, it doesn't seem like BS. Now let's look at the tobacco vanilla. Pop the top. If you look at that label, somewhat the same. The Lost Cherry, the text on the Lost Cherry seems to be a little bit less fat. But it does seem to be pretty much in line with the tobacco vanilla. It's not too far off. Now let's look at what we know to be the fake. Keep these separate so we don't mix these up. Now if you look at the text on the Lost Cherry for the other one, it's really bubbly. It's strange because the one on the known fake closer resembles the tobacco vanilla. The logo on the tobacco vanilla. One of the bigger things though is if you look at the physical labels on the bottles themselves, you'll see how sharp the labeling is on the corners for the Tom Ford tobacco vanilla, and you'll see how rounded the labels are on the known fake. Now if we look at the item that is presumed real, you'll also see the edges on the one that is assumed, the bottle that is assumed real, are a little bit more sharp, even though they are rounded. Now, let's check out Eau Swallow Blanc because it comes in a similar bottle. The Eau Swallow Blanc has very sharp labels, very sharp ends on this label. Very sharp. There's a batch number. Very sharp. And the letters are bubbly. So it's strange to me, you know, because the letters on the known fake more so resemble the letters on the actual bottles. So that's another kicker that you may be dealing with a funky bottle of juice. The lettering. And the other thing is just the general feel. does it feel right? You know, if you put this in your hand, well, you take it out of its little bottle. Does the lid come right off? Does the lid fit flush? If you look at this one, the lid doesn't even fit flush. It almost does. It's right there, but as you can see, there's space right there. You may or may not be able to see it. There's space there. Now let's look at the item that we presume to be real. And again, this is the cap. Does the cap sit flush? There's a small gap in this one as well, which you may not be able to see. There's a small gap in this one as well. Now let's take a look at our tobacco vanille. There's a gap, but it is not as pronounced. But now, I'm going to put that one, I'm not going to consider that one because that's getting really ticky-tacky based on your perspective and all that type of stuff. So I'll probably won't add that one to the guide. But now, the final test. Now, I'm not going to spray these because I don't like wasting juice, be it fake or real. Now, if this cost me $40, then of course, there's no way in hell I would be, I would know that there's funky junk in it. So I wouldn't probably feel that it'd be poisonous or be hazardous to my health to spray it, so I likely wouldn't. I sprayed both of these because I didn't feel it'd be complete poison for the price, but I sprayed both of these. The fragrance on the left, the atomizer is amazing, and it actually mists. It sprays a very, very, very fine mist. The known fake sprays cologne on you, which is the telltale sign of a cheap atomizer. And there's one other tall tale symbol that I picked up on a. I'm not going to use the tobacco vanilla for this one. There's one tall tale thing I picked up on the video when I was watching, trying to figure out if these were legit or not. And I actually saw it on the video from Russia. I couldn't understand what he was saying, but I got context clues on what he was saying, and I tried it, and it was true. This is a very subtle detail, but I may need a flashlight. You may not be able to see it. If you look inside, yeah, you actually can somewhat see it. If you look inside of this case, not of the atomizer, you see that there's a channel that runs from the back of the atomizer to the hole. I mean, from the back of the little section where it pops on to the hole where the actual juice comes out. There's a channel there. And what I've known and realized, what I've realized in testing all the fragrances that I have, and these are the only Tom Ford fragrances, these bottles of Lost Cherry are the only Tom Ford fragrances that I own that didn't come directly from my actual big box retail store or directly from Neiman Marcus or somewhere online. Every bottle that I've tested of Tom Ford, every atomizer has that channel. This is the gray vat I just got. It has a channel or a rectangle or something. You look inside, so it comes into focus. You see the square there? There's a channel or something that is inside of the atomizer which allows it to spray, to actually give you a very, very, very good mist. And I've seen this with other bottles of cologne. I'll do one with the, if ever. It comes out as a mist, a very fine mist, allowing maximum coverage, maximum area, things like that. Now, if you look at the known fake, let's pop the top and take a look. It can be a pain getting these things off sometimes. Pop the top. What do you see? Nothing there. Nothing there. It doesn't want to come into focus for you the way that it should, but if you really get deep down and look, or if you have your own bottle that you think is fake and Tom Ford and you look, this one has no indentation. I mean, this one has no channel. So there is no channel by which it passes through the atomizer. So what you get is you get more of a spritz. You get a mist, or if you spray it or push it down right, you do get a mist. But the mist is nowhere near as fine. Yeah, I decided I will spray it. The mist is nowhere near as fine as it would be if it was legit Tom Ford atomizer. And that, my friend, is the tall tale, one of the telltale symbols that you're dealing with a fake. Now, excuse me. I'm hoping that this video has been helpful. I'm going to list all these steps, and I would encourage other people to do this or make videos like this for other fragrances. I've only done it for Tom Ford Lost Cherry because this is the only fragrance I've ever ordered a whole bottle of that wasn't from an official retailer. But I encourage you to look at your juices if you feel like you could have gotten potentially gypped. Let's be honest with ourselves. If it costs $300, you're not gonna find it for $140 unless you have someone that just wants to get rid of it. Even then, an informed seller would boost the price up a little bit just to know that, hey, I mean, just because of the fact that they can make more money. These amazing deals where things are being sold for 80 and 70 and 80% cheaper, more often than not, they just aren't real. So just keep that in mind. And there was one other thing I wanted to say, which is a surefire tell that this Tom Ford, he was likely fake. If you check besides the fact that it was screaming at us when the batch code was not on the bottom of the box, there is a batch code on the bottom of the actual bottle, and it says A98. If you go to checkfresh.com and enter the batch code A98 in, it will give you a batch code for September of 2018. Lost Cherry was not released until November 2018. So this leads me to this. Am I led to believe that someone got a hold of a bottle of Lost Cherry 2 months before it was actually available for sale and held on to it and didn't sell it until 2020? I find it hard to believe. I know that looking at this website, Tom Ford repeats the batch codes every 10 years, or they may repeat every 10 years. But the idea that this somehow was produced 2 months before this was released and someone got their hands on it, I'm not buying it. Maybe you would buy it, and maybe it was the one situation, where, well, maybe they didn't put this one, maybe they just, this box is old, and you can see wear and tear in the box, and that's because it's 2 years old or going on 2 years old, and you can believe whatever you want to, but as far as I'm concerned, every other Tom Ford box I've seen has had that batch code on the bottom of it. It seems to be a standard. And how can this be released before it was actually released to the public? So it's just some things to keep in mind. I'm hoping that these tools have been helpful. Please leave a like. Please leave a comment if you think that I missed anything, and I'd be grateful to hear from you. You all be safe. Take care. I hope this helped. Peace.